Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Kalayim, Pedig Beis, Halacha Aleph. We're learning today Daf Yud Aleph. We left off Mamish on Daf Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph, all the way on the top. Just quickly going back to the basic rule in the Mishnah. The Mishnah teaches us that if a foreign seed amounts in the amount of a roiva of a kav, falls into seeds in the amount of a sa'ah minus a kav, right? So one sa'ah has 24 roivas. So if you have 23 parts of 24 that are wheat, and you have one roiva that's barley, that creates a forbidden mixture. That was the basic rule. And now, according to the Tanna Kama, you have the obligation of Yema'et. As we explained, Yema'et can either mean take out some of the foreign seeds, so you have a smaller ratio, or Yema'et will mean, as we'll see today in Daf, that you are allowed to add to the wheat. There's a big problem with that, as we'll get to today, as we'll speak out on the words of introduction. But then the Mishnah said that the above ratio, that we are only measuring the seeds, that's by edible seeds. But by Zeroini Ginam, by garden plants, by garden seeds that are never eaten, the plant that is eaten is not the seed. There we don't look at the seed itself. Be'emes amru, remember, there we look at how much seeds are needed to plant a base sa'ah. And Danny used the words output. I don't know if that's clear enough for people that are just joining right now, but the amount of seeds that are needed to plant an area of a base sa'ah, why is it called a base sa'ah? It's called a base sa'ah because when it comes to grains, when it comes to wheat, one sa'ah, which is a quantity of seeds of wheat, will fill up an area of land that's called a base sa'ah. And so it's called the house of a sa'ah. So there are certain seeds, especially when it comes to Zeroi Negina, that a much lesser amount will fill up a base sa'ah area. Because the seeds are smaller. The product is just as big as, but the seeds are very small. So the seeds take up less, so less. And the Marafulda, when we learned yesterday, this Gemara, the Mishnah, the Marafulda spoke about a kav and a half. We're going to get back to that today. So we say the same logic, but it's different. That a 24th of that is already enough to create a problem. Even though that's a very, very, very small amount. It's small. So the Gemara is going to further elaborate on this. That's how we're opening up today. What's the logic of that? And we're going to come back again to the idea of Marasayin. Now, what will be novel in today's daf, and it creates a challenge and a big discussion, is that we mentioned, and we're not wrong, we're quoting great commentators, that by Kalayim, Marasayin is a problem on a biblical level, which is really unusual. Normally, the issue of Maratayim is more like a Darabanan. And we're so careful when to say Marasayin. We're not allowed to make up our own Marasayins. If not, there's no end. Ein lo davar soif. Remember that. What we will see right now is that these ratios are medrabanan. That will come up from today's daf, which will be a problem because the words be'emes normally means halacha l'moshe v'sinai. It's going to be a very easy daf, but we're going to touch upon certain things that will trigger many people based on what we have been saying until now. The Gemara is going to ask the Gavaldik Kasha that how is one allowed to do the Yema'et by adding the primary seed in Mevatel and Isla Chatchila? That's a great question. And you are yet allowed to do that, as we will see. We had on the Mishnah the sheet of Rab Shimon. What was the sheet of Rab Shimon, David? That if you have two types that are secondary, that got mixed in the primary, neither of them have the amount of a roiva. Rab Shimon holds the two do not combine. That's a huge leniency. It means even though if you combine them together, you have the roiva hakav, or maybe even more, since no single secondary seed has the amount of a roiva, even though the primary seed has within it a mixture of foreign seeds in plural, it's not a problem. So we're going to focus a lot in today's daf on the Shita of Rab Shimon. And in the end of today's daf, we're going to conclude, the Gemara is going to bring a Braisa that will qualify the rule regarding edible seeds. Regarding edible seeds, what did we say? We said that it has to be a roiva of seeds. We don't look at the output. We will see that even by edible seeds, there are certain seeds that are so potent that a very small amount will be suitable to seed up a besa area. There is a certain point where if the seeds are so potent, even by the edible seeds, we won't look at the seeds themselves, we will look at the output, which is a big chumrah. Potent means that a smaller amount of seeds in quantity will fill up a land of much larger size. So that will be more or less.
And wheat seeds are not edible?
Wheat seeds are edible. So in other words, is it the definition of Zeiroi Negina are seeds that are themselves not edible? Well, let me word it differently. We gave it a carrot. Just to know, when you eat a carrot, the part of the plant that you are eating is not the seed. When you eat popcorn, when you eat the toasted kernels, what you're eating, if you would have chosen prior to popping it, prior to roasting it, that itself is what's planted. You're eating the seed. Okay. Guys, Daf Yud Aleph all the way on top of the Amud says the Gemara, and really we're going to learn this as a kasha. Right after we had this general ratio rule, right, that if a foreign seed in the amount of only a roiva, which is 1/24 of the 24, gets mixed into seeds that are the remaining 23 of the 24. So a foreign seed gets mixed into the principal seed. The ratio that creates a problematic mixture is a roiva in a saw. Then the Mishnah went on to say, that's exactly where we began yesterday in the Mishnah. Be'emes amru. In truth, we say, normally be'emes amru means halacha l'moshe v'sinai, as we will see in today's daf, and how we will apply it over here. Yes, that's Eiroi Negina She'edim L'cholim. That's Eiroi Negina, and we're defining garden plants. What's the definition? The plants whose seeds are not eaten. The edible part of the plant is not the seed. They're mitzarfin echad mi esrim ba'arba b'noifeil lebeisam. When we're looking at the same idea of ratio, we're looking not at the seed itself, but we're looking at the seeds that are felled, which means planted, as we read yesterday, into the ground. That 1/24 of seeds that are needed to plant the area of a beisam. Now, the example that we gave, that Marafulda gave, is that for certain Zeiroi Negina, that a kav and a half, 1 kav and a half, which is very small, not a saw, kav and a half is enough to fill up an entire beisam. What's a 24th of a kav and a half? So the Marafuld echad mitezayin of a kav. Not a kav, 1/16 of a kav. That's already that makes a problem. Do we go even less than that? The Marafuld didn't say. The Braisa is speaking about V'tani Allah. We learned in a Braisa that there are certain Zeiroi Negina that only 1 kav is needed to plant a beisam, not a kav and a half. And yet there is another type of edible seed that only a chatzi kav, can you imagine, is needed to plant an entire beisam. Now, are you telling me, asks the Gemara, guys, a 24th from a half a kav is a half a beitzah amount. It's a half an egg amount of seed. That's a very small amount of seeds. So asks the Gemara, the echad mi esmem ba'arabam, lachatzi hakav, 1/24 of only a half a kav. Who klum, is it anything? And is it? Are we saying that that's enough to make a problem, to create an isur on 23 portions of a saw? That's a kasha of the Gemara. Look inside the Pnei Moshe, 70 lines from the top of the Amid. The echad me esrim ba'arba lachatzi kaf tov hu klum. Is it good for anything? What an expression! Are you good for anything? Bit me up. So basically, the Gemara's kasha is: come on, there's got to be a minimum limit. Why would we have a problem with such a small amount? So just quickly, we're speaking about seeds, grain, legumes, vegetables, garden plants, that the Torah does not allow us in Israel to plant two types together. Here in LA, you can make a vegetable patch. We keep on saying lechatchila, and you can put all types of stuff, one near the other, one inside the other. We don't care. In Eretz Yisrael, we're not allowed to plant a mixture. We're speaking about a person that did not intend to mix anything. They have seeds. For whatever reason, a small amount of a foreign seed got mixed with the primary seed. So the ratio, when am I in Israel not allowed to plant it, the normal ratio is 1/24. Now we're going on and we're saying that when it comes to Gzeroi Negina, it's not 1/24, it's 1/24 of the amount of seeds that are needed to fill a Beisa area of land. And there are very few, but there are certain Zeroi Negina. Imagine only a half a kav is needed for a whole Beisa. 24th of a half a kav is a half an egg. The Gemara is saying it doesn't make sense that such a small amount of seeds that was not mixed intentionally, it got mixed in over there, as we learned yesterday, that would create a problem. So says the Gemara, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Right. Half a kav is double a roiva.
So what?
So you're saying a larger amount?
Half a kav. We're speaking about a 24th of a half a kav, not a 24th of a sa'ah. Can you imagine? Yeah. So says the Gemara, listen, if the issue would have been that the foreign seed modifies the taste, there has to be a minimum amount, which lesser than that, no one will you won't taste the difference. It won't affect the taste. But this is not about taste. This is about marat ayin. This is about an observer thinking that you can mix seeds together before you plant them. Let's read it inside. Answers the Gemara, at kan choshul maras ayin. The ratio of the 24th of a saw, or when it comes to Zeroi Negina, guys, it's a 24th of a Beisa, is because of maras ayin. And yes, when you have seeds that are that potent, meaning that even small amounts are able to fill up a large area of land, people look at those seeds differently, because you don't look at how few seeds you have. When you're a farmer, you know what that means. Oh man, this little cup will fill up our whole field. Yeah, and the ratio is a 24th. And if it's a 24th or more, it's a problem. Unless it's not a problem. Bikan ve'elach means lesser than that, less than 24th of the output.
All right, doesn't have to do with what you see in the field. Even if it's a few field and it's turnips, it's very visible. I mean, you put the
We're not speaking at all, Kevin, when I'm interrupting you, because we're not talking about as they are already planted. We're speaking to farmers, or now to scholars that are going to become theoretical farmers, just with the knowledge that when you look at seeds, when you, Kevin, look at a businessman. When a businessman sees $100,000, and when a rabbi sees $100,000, they're not looking at the same thing. A businessman sees $100,000, he sees $2 million. When people who were gifted with God's blessing, with the know-how of how to create the keli, even if the number is not the millions, they see millions in it. Mm-hmm. Farmers, that's the point. Farmers, that little bit fills up a big, that's what they see. It becomes more chashuv for them. Okay. But the guy that eats it, the guy eating it, it's a cup. That's all it is. Okay, beautiful. Now, according to all over here, I want to repeat, we learned this when we learned the Mishnah. Even though I'm standing around, even though generally the problem of marasayin by kilayim is a biblical problem, which is gavaldik, there is a marasayin midoiraisa, these ratios are not midoiraisa. What's midoiraisa? We learned at Asherilio, and we're going to learn this later again. Roiv. That means it's not the field, it's in the seeds. If there's a mixture of seeds, not done on purpose, the way we learned yesterday. Before they produced. If there is a majority and the minority, biblically, the minority is nullified. Wheat and barley got mixed together. I have a wheat For some reason, barley got mixed up over here. I want to plant it. Midoy Raisa, if the roiv is wheat, I am allowed to plant it. It's not called kalayim altogether. Why? Because the minority is nullified. The ratio here, even though it's all based on marasayim, is a rabbinic ratio. The problem is the Mishnah says the emes omru. How do you say that? We'll get to that in a moment. But before we get there, the Gemara says Yemayit. Yemayit means literally to reduce.
Did we see the reason why such a tiny amount is important?
Because the ratio, because it fits the ratio.
No, this 24th.
Because by Ziroi Negina, the Mishnah says you don't look at the seeds, you look at the power that they have. Now, Yemayit normally means you diminish. But the emes is that Yemayit, like now you have a mixture. Now you got a problem. You got the main seed and the secondary seed. Yemayit would mean bring it under that ratio. Take out the foreign seed. Yemayit also allows you to add to the primary seed. That's step number one. The problem with that is that there is a general rule, Yaron, that when you have something that's prohibited, you're not allowed to lechatchila nullify it. I'll give you an example. I have in my kitchen, I have a kitchen. You have a kitchen. And by accident, however it happened, some milk fell into a meat pot. And I know the law that if there would be 60 portions of meat and only one, not 59, 61, then the milk is nullified. What happens if it's 59, 1? Can I add more chicken soup to nullify the milk? The answer is lechatchila, you're not allowed to do it. Lechatchila, you're not allowed to nullify a prohibited mixture. So that will be the problem with the Yemayit. So Yemayit, first of all, the Gemara says, don't limit Yemayit to the way it sounds. That's okay. To take out the problematic seed, there's no kasha on that. How do you do the Mamayit? You only have to make the ratio little. You don't have to actually take out the bad. You can add to the good. You can add to the primary. The Gemara, or you have a roiva hakav, get rid of some of it. Not Rabbi Yosi that says you have to get rid of all of it. The Tanakama, or add to the saw. The Gemara says, the Gemara jumps. How can you do that? Now you have different versions. We're going to go with Rabbi Bohu, B'Shem Rabbi Yechon. That there's a general rule that if, my case, you have a kitchen, you have meat and milk, and unfortunately, they got mixed together. And you don't have the ratio of bittul. You got a problem. What happens if the maid, the house help, the one that put the cheese in there, she later added to the meat. She never knew it's prohibited. The ikid is she didn't do it on purpose. If you ended up adding and creating now a ratio of nullification, the rule is if that modification was done b'shoigeg, then the mixture is permitted. But if you know that it was done with the intent of nullifying the prohibition, not only that your lachatchila cannot be mevatel iser, there's a penalty. If you then lachatchila mevatel the iser, the mixture remains forbidden. So that's a problem. Mezit, the forbidden remains also. So how can the Gemara say that when the Mishnah says mamayit, it can buy either or, it can also be moisev alasah? How do you allow to be moisev alasah? To which the Gemara gives the following answer. These are big statements. Answers the Gemara, Taman, over there, B'Shem Rabbi Yechanan. Do you know when, if you added to the one side, if you were mavatal the iser b'mezid, you get penalized? That's only in my case of meat and milk. A mixture of meat and milk is also midoy raisa. So you were marble avatal isur toira. But over here, this is the key. At marble avatal mapnei maraso ayin. The ratio that we are talking about is only rabbinic. The ratio of one roiva to a saw, or zeroy negina to a base saw, is only midrabanan. Look inside the Rashirilio, 4 lines from the top on the right column. At kan chashul amaras ayin, the midoy raisa again chad betrei bata. Why is chad betrei bata? Kiven dolay eidvan kedei lizroya. That's what we learned yesterday. If the farmer would have mixed barley into wheat with the intent of planting it, then we wouldn't say that it's batal. That's the whole vart, guys. We learned that there's never a bittul. That if I have one barley kernel in a mountain of wheat, everything becomes usher. But since it was not mixed on purpose, and therefore the maras ayin has to be understood midrabanan. Since the issue was only midrabanan, then lechatchila you can be mevatel the iser. Do we paskin this way? Huge machlokes. Do we paskin that by surah the rabbanan you can be mevatel iser lechatchila? According to our Gemara here, absolutely yes. Yes.
You can apply all these concepts to any type of voice?
Yes.
Okay.
Big statements. We're learning a big statement over here.
And then the second question is,
okay. Now the Gemara goes weiter, going back to the Mishnah. Yemayit was the Tanakama. It says Rabbi.
Is there room for Arama there?
I can't hear you, I can't.
In Basar v'Chalav, is there a room for Arama? Arama. When it comes to Basar v'Chalav.
No, when it comes to this rule, whenever the Chachamim, if we paskin this way, that we differentiate between the Erais and the Rabbanan, that makes it shoygig, there's no harama. Did you do it with the intent to be mavatal? That's called mezit. The example that I gave was a good example. The person that was mavatal isser had no idea
with the
what
cleaning
to do.
lady, yeah, whatever, yeah.
is
Okay.
any maras ayin midrabanan?
All of them are midrabanan. I'm saying a big chiddush that marasayin here could be used the Eraisa, but not in our Gemara. Yeah.
Rabbi, when is the does the accident that takes place of the mixture, like in the process of seeding it? So right at the beginning, if there was an accident and the barley and the wheat got mixed before you planted it, at that point you can plant it because it got mixed by accident?
That's exactly what we're discussing, So let me go better. The case that we gave 2 days ago, is that you had a farmer that actually was initially planning to eat those kernels. They used to eat it. He was going to go to his kitchen and make it into flour. When I make kernels into flour, I can mix any way I want. So we're speaking about a farmer that mixed wheat and barley, just as an example, because he was planning to make it into flour. And at some point he says, no, I'm going to plant this. So since he mixed it in order to eat it, that's where we say that if the mixture is less than the ratio of a roiva to a saw, you can leave it. Lechatchila. If it's a roiva to a saw, now you have to, according to Rabbi Yossi, you got to remove all of it. So says the Gemara, my Talmud Rabbi Yossi. Why not? Why can you not just reduce? Explains the Gemara. Since you began to remove it, or even according to the Tanakama, you got to be Yemayit, one way or the other. Once you begin something, you have to go all the way until the end. That's Gavaldik. In other words, Rabbi Yossi agrees to the same ratio. The Gemara says, that if from the outset you never hit the problematic mixture, you had a mixture, but it was less than a roiva in the saw. The Rabbi Yossi also holds you can ignore it. It's not a problem. But remember that certain things are not a problem until it becomes a problem. Once it becomes a problem, so Israel tolerated a certain amount of misbehavior on the borders. So there is a logic to say that it's so little if there is a logic. I'm not going to deal with this. But once you begin to deal with it, you got to go until the end. Not you might cut the grass down. No, Rabbi Yossi says, Yavod. You have to completely remove that which does not belong. Now, hey Chavidon. Now the Gemara wants to know a question. Lashitas Rabbi Yossi. Now we're going in the Mishnah. There were 3 opinions: Tanakama, Rab Shimon, and the Chachamim. According to the majority opinions, Tanakama and the Chachamim, what happens if the roiva of foreign seeds was comprised of more than one type? Remember that, David? I'll come to the end of the Mishnah. So there's the main seed. You have foreign. The foreign, there are 2 types of foreigns. Together, they make a roiva, neither or more. but neither of them on their own is a problem. Rab Shimon is lenient, but the majority opinions is that you got a problem, you have to remove it. Now let's go in the sheet of Rabbi Yossi. So now I have wheat is the main, and I have barley and I have oats. Barley and oats. Rabbi Yossi says you have to remove all of the problematic. Do we have to remove both or only one? No, so Rabbi Yossi is why that if you never had the roiva, you can leave it. But once you have to remove it, you have to remove all of it. But maybe in this case, all of it is only one type. Let's read it inside. So the Gemara is asking, do we say, even according to Rabbi Yossi, why v'dayoy? Because you removed all of it. Or not? Even kuloi. Kuloi means the other type. This is a question that remains unanswered. In the Babli, we would have the word teku. How great is that? No, it's this question is bringing up. Got to remove Hamas and the jihadists, but Veda, until the end. Okay, says Rab Shimon. Now, Rab Shimon was the lenient opinion that says, Lo yamru ala min echad. In other words, the Gemara is saying words that Rab Shimon did not say, but that Rab Shimon is implying that Shnei minim loy.
Here it says you could read this as a statement, man.
But we're not learning it that way. Shnei minim loy. Shnei minim loy means, again, in the example that we gave, you have a wheat seeds, and in it was mixed some barley. In it was mixed some oats. Barley and the oats together are a roiva or more. But if you don't have a roiva of the barley, you don't have a roiva of the oats by themselves, according to Rab Shimon, you're allowed to plant it. So now we want to see how far is he lenient. Asks the Gemara, ad heichon. What's ad heichon? Only ad ruba shel sa'am. Think about it. If you have two small amounts, if they jointly, and by the way, two doesn't only mean two. Two can mean 10. What happens if every small amount by themselves are less than a roiva? But if you were to add up together all of these small amounts, zusammen, it will exceed the amount of the major component. Rab Shimon says you don't combine foreign amounts, but there has to be a limit. What's the limit? Roiv. Can you imagine that? I know when we're speaking about we're speaking about a saw, right? Saw is made out of 24 roivas. What happens if there are 28 other types? Each one is less than the roiva kav. 28. But if you were to combine them all together, they will comprise of the majority of what you have all together. Even according to Rab Shimon, it's problematic. Now, however, another chiddush, but chazar v'hoisef, we just said that anything that's problematic only midrabanan mishum maros ha'ayin. You are lechatchila allowed to be mevatel the iser. If that's the case, even according to Rab Shimon, that you hit the problematic ratio, he's lenient. But there's a problem when ruba. Now what add to the primary that chazar v'hoisef. Chazar hatfu aleh teidam gavaldik. And we don't say, like Rabbi Yossi, once you got a problem, now you got to deal with the problem all the way. We don't do that. Because Rab Shimon in the Mishnah doesn't have to resolve anything. The Gemara says that even Rab Shimon will agree that there is a case that if all of the different seeds together become the majority component, now it's prohibited. What do you need to do? Let Rab Shimon only yamayit. How are you yamayit? Add to the primary seed. Make sure that the primary seed will be a little bit in the majority 50.1 in the majority of the sum total, and weiter you're good to go.
Right, why don't we consider the multiple seats as the majority?
Because we don't combine them. Because since Rabbi Shimon says you don't combine them, so you got to go all the way. Very good question, Kate. That's the point the Gemara is making. We're learning how to think over here.
You see that last part?
Like you have a country, what's the minority? What's the majority? What happens if all of the minorities together comprise the majority? Is America a white country? You understand? What we're saying over here is that according to Rav Shimon, let's speak about what's negea to us, Yidden, in Eretz Yisrael. So you have minority groups. We don't combine them. Keep them separate.
As long as they're not Muslim.
Well, don't say that, because they are.
Well,
But they're the minority. We're nothing to worry about them. Even if you want to keep it democratic, the way the Goyish world sees it, we're good. Yaron is looking at me over here. Now, guys, let's go. Daf Yudalef Amid Beis. Come Rab Shimon Amar. Another, guys, we're going now learning B'shitas Rab Shimon. Just like Rab Shimon says, Ein Shnei Minim Star from Le'isur, which is the case of our Mishnah. The majority opinions, Tanakam and the Chachamim, in the case of our Mishnah, when you have the barley and the oats that combine, well, barley, I don't want to say the word oats. Yeah, barley and the legumes that they combine together to be to pose a problem. According to Rab Shimon, we don't combine them. So Rab Shimon's rule of not combining different minorities in our Mishnah brings us to a leniency. Will Rab Shimon use the same rule also if it creates a stringency? Many times we say, he only says it for a leniency or only says it for stringency. The Gemara is saying that Rab Shimon will stand by his opinion, whether it's l'chumra, whether it's l'kula. In our Mishnah, it's l'kula. Kain hu amar shnei minim etzarfim leheter. There'll be another case the Gemara is going to tell you where we're going to use the same rule of Rab Shimon, but this rule of Rab Shimon will actually bring a stringency. What will that be? Hey, Chavida, give me that case. I'll tell you the case. Guys, hold your head.
Don't combine together to make it heter.
Doesn't combine no matter which direction. Now listen to this case. When we're speaking about a saw, as we learned yesterday, a saw is 24 roivas. The ratio is not 1 in 24. It's 1 in 23. The Mishnah is giving the ratio, it's 1 in 23. Together you have 24. What happens if the primary seed is not 23 out of 24? It's a little bit less than 23. So the example the Gemara gives, 22 and a half. Could have been 22.9. So the point is, you're near, wait. You're near 23. Now, guys, everything we learned in the Mishnah is proportional. It's proportional. Yeah, I don't need to have 23. But now the problematic seed doesn't have to be a roiva. The problematic seed, even if it's a little bit less than the roiva, will pose a problem. But wait. So you have that. Now you have a half a roiva of so'idim. A half a roiva of so'idim is not enough proportionally. It's half. Guys, 1 roiva makes a problem in 23. You have 22 and a half. Half is too little. But Abed, you have a half a roiv of soidim. And now the nafal l'toicha pachus miroiv adosh. And now, again, doesn't have to be half of a roiv. You have a little bit less than a roiv of lentils. Joint, if you were to join these two amounts, what would you have?
Over the 23.
If you were join these two amounts,
You have enough to know that. You have over 23 total.
No. No. Okay, stop. I shouldn't have said that. Because Rab Shimon says you don't do that.
Right.
You never combine the two to make a problem. But let me go in the other direction. What's the other direction? How about combining the wheat and the barley?
That's what we're saying.
The wheat and the barley.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's 20.
because if you were to combine the wheat and the barley, now you have 23. Now the lentils will not pose a problem. We don't say that. The wheat and the barley don't combine, and therefore we still look at the wheat, that the wheat is 22.5. And therefore even a little bit less than a roiva of lentils will make a problem. So it makes a problem.
If it wasn't wheat and barley, but it was wheat, I forgot the other kind of wheat that we said at the beginning.
So that was the one. That's why I was afraid. That's the machloikas, the chachamim, and the tanakam. That's why I didn't want to mention the one. I think was oats. That's why I took back my oats. That's why lentils is a great solution. Let me just find the opening line in the Mishnah. Right, the first one was chitim zurim. So item and shomay l'shua. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not going to combine barley and oats because barley and oats. Okay. Because barley and oats are allowed to be planted together. Okay.
So they would nullify the
Machloikas Tanakama and the Chachamim. Let's go over here. Point is, we're consistent either way.
So how's he
By the way, according to the Tanakama, this is for sure forbidden. There's nothing to talk about. Because according to the Tanakama of our Mishnah, the barley and the lentils combined. Okay, right. Let's go back. The next piece in the Mishnah was
Sorry, can you just explain how is he machmir here?
the lentils, enough lentils fell in the ratio to prohibit the wheat.
Okay.
But if you were to combine the wheat and the barley, then you don't have enough lentils to prohibit. We said our seeds that are edible. When it comes to seeds, we learned in Abraisa. Oh, here we go. So the big difference in our Mishnah between tvua kitnias, which we are calling edible seeds, versus zeiroine gina, which is what we're calling non-edible seeds. By the edible seeds, the rule is you look only at the seeds. Saw of seeds, roiva of seeds, you got a problem. If you're looking at non-edible seeds, then you're not looking at the seed, you're looking at the potency of the seed. And as we learned today, even more than the Manaf Fulda in the Mishnah, even if you have a seed that a chatzi kav, it fills up a whole beisah, a 24th of that is a half an egg. A half an egg of that will prohibit the whole saw of seeds. But we only say that because it's non-edible. It sounds from our Mishnah that if the seeds are edible, we always stick to the rule. Forget about the output. Only look at the seed. The Gemara is going to say it's not accurate. Says the Gemara, we learned in Abraisa that the rule of our Mishnah, when we're speaking about grains, when we're speaking about kitnios, legumes, that we don't look at the beisah. We only look at the seeds. He gives an example, even though normally one saw of seeds, of grain, fills up a beisah of land. There are exceptions. There are certain grains that only 3 kav, only 4 kav. Guys, one saw is made out of 6 kav. 3 kav means half of the amount. Arba kav means not half, but even half. Well, even if 3 or 4 kav, even there, we stick to the rule. I don't care about the output, even though these seeds are very potent. Only half fills up a beisah. Now, the fact that the Baraisa gave an example of 3, 4, the Gemara is saying is implying a big chiddush. What's the big chiddush? That we only keep to the rule, even if there are certain seeds that are more potent, only if they are double as potent. But if they are more than double as potent, that means the moment you have a certain type of seed that less than 3 kav, the example the Gemara gives is 2 kav. It doesn't mean 2 kav, it means 2.9. That if it's less than 3, why did the Mishnah say 3 or 4? Why did the Mishnah say 3 as an example? 3 or 4, like that's a kasha. If it's 3, or for sure 4, they tell you it's only in that direction. 3, 4, 5, but not in the other direction. If it's 2, then the rule that the Mishnah gave by Zeroi Negino, we will give even by edible seeds. Echad me'esrim ba'arba of the seeds that are needed in a beisah. So let's go. I have a certain unique Israeli type of wheat. God gave the Jewish people a big koyach in this. And we figured out how to only with 2 kav fill up a beisah. You know what we say? We say that if 1/24 of this is from a foreign seed, we say we view this seed, very good, as we view this as a saw, as a base saw. So 1/24 of this that gets mixed in something else will create a problem. 1/24 of the 2 kav that gets mixed into another seed will create a problem. 1/24 of 2 kav is not a quarter of a kav, it's much less. Doesn't matter. In other words, even by the edible seeds, there comes a point where we use the chumrah that the Mishnah had in the Sefer. And the final thing we'll learn today is be'emes amru. So be'emes amru means halacha l'Moshe Sinai. The Gemara says, what's be'emes? Rabbi Lazar, call Makim Rishonu be'emes halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Now let me tell you the huge problem with this. The huge problem with this is that we just learned today on Amid Aleph that the ratio of 1 and 24 is a maras ayin midrabanan. How can there be a halacha l'Moshe Sinai on a din d'Rabbanan? Can't be. And therefore, this is one of the main sources that when Chazal say halacha l'Moshe Sinai, it doesn't always mean halacha l'Moshe Sinai technically, the way that Rambam defines it when he gives the 5 levels of Torah, right? In the Hagdamah to Perush HaMishnayos, halacha l'Moshe Sinai means it's a rule that no one argues with. The arguments we had in the Mishnah was, what do you do if you have a problem? Yamayit or Yav? But the other machlekes we have in the Mishnah is, do you combine 2 different types? So there was really 2 against 1. And then in the 2, Tanakam and the Chacham, there was a nuance of a difference by the barley and the oats. But the concept of 1/24th, whether it is from the seed, whether it is from the output, no one argues with that. Just to make it clear. And that's what be'emes. Be'emes means in truth. In truth means because there's no argument. You don't have to pick sides. This is be'emes. It's amazing. So what the Gemara actually says by halacha l'Moshe Sinai means it's universally accepted. Let me use those words. Be'emes amru means something that's universally accepted. All right. We'll stop over here. I know where we have some time to go, but look at tomorrow's Daf Yud Beis. Wow. And God willing, tomorrow we're going to learn all the way until halacha Beis.